Oh, good.
Okay, welcome. Oh my gosh, to the first ever YouTube episode. I don't want to call it an episode. It's a big kind of beautiful expression of Pussy
Yes.
Woman. This is so exciting to have Tara here for our first conversation. So welcome, Tara.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love you feel so embodied in that pussy woman. I love it. Like just when you say it, it's I can feel the essence of how it's definitely like your creation. So beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, it's
Mm.
really fun to say. It's a good kind
It
of
is.
strong vibration to claim as well each time is welcome
Hmm.
Pussy Woman.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So I'll share who Tara is. So for those of you who haven't met her before, you can hear a little background of what she does because it's very full and very rich. And I love all of the descriptions you've said. I really want to kind of give
You
them.
can read all of it or you can do the short
No, I'm
condensed
good. I'm
version.
like, I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in.
Okay, good.
Beautiful written descriptions of your work. So Tara is a new paradigm feminine leader, a soul level transformational guide, a sacred feminine wealth mentor, and founder of the Akashic Women's. So,
Yay.
wow. Actually, what's coming through is just asking you how long you've been, on this path, just so people roughly, see the timeline.
It's yeah. So well, in some ways I feel like I've been on this path for like a long time. I'm sure you can probably relate as I, identified some of the threads of my earlier life. But I stepped onto this this real devotion to my sacred feminine path. That was actually my very first business at 12, 13 years ago was Sacred Feminine Path. And so it's been 12, 13 years, and the work has evolved a lot since then, rebranded several times, and found the Akashic Records way back then and fell in love with the Akashic Records and just really felt called to support women in their evolutionary journey and really anchoring in the fullness of their purpose and their expression and cultivating that really deep trust in themselves. And yeah, and it's just kind of all evolved from there.
Yeah, as it does. And I really feel like
Yeah.
that would be something to touch on today is the spiral,
Mhm.
the evolutionary spiral, because that's
Yeah.
something that's so integrated in your work, isn't it? That feels like a foundational piece of your work, this
Hmm.
evolution that we go through as women who are on this path, who are on the feminine path, who feel called to
Hmm.
their soul's work and their soul's mission. There is this evolutionary process that happens. And actually, personally, for me, diving deep into
Hmm.
that so
Hmm.
instead of feeling like there was something that I was constantly kind of battling with or sort of struggling with or not understanding why I had, all these things that were all constantly wanting to change within me. And then when I
Hmm.
really went into that feminine, realizing, oh my gosh, this undercurrent is medicine for me,
Yeah.
really being more of myself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on my journey, though, I find it takes a lot of commitment and devotion to be able to listen to that and to follow it over and over again because it plays into really trusting the unknown and a willingness to let go of the old and yeah, saying yes to whatever that is. And sometimes I have found I have a very clear vision of what wants to come through, and other times I just know that things have they're outdated and there's an energy swirling and there's new that wants to be birthed through me and I have no idea what it looks like yet. And I know you can totally relate to that.
Yes. And that trust. And yeah, I feel like this brings me into the question of pussy womb, because I feel like that's really where, or that's where I go. That's where I go to kind of embody that deeper expression and connection to our roots and the mother, and working within the kind of lower chakras, for really cultivating the strength in that. So yeah, to ask you a bit about, you know, what or when or how even did you come to connecting with your womb, your pussy womb? What was the kind of first call?
Yeah. Well, it's such an interesting question too, because I think if I look back that, you know, the first, and I think that as women, we have a variety of wisdom centers in our body that, you know, create the female energetic system. And the heart was like such a powerful wisdom center for me when I, you know, when I was feeling that pull to, you know, even birth sacred feminine. At the time, it was like a lot of heart connection and just help them and tap into self connection and really hold that. And that was a part of my evolutionary path. And it was a beautiful source of guidance, you know, to a point. But you're right. Like eventually the spiral, like my essence, as I started to anchor and ground and embody more fully, the spiral took me deeper into the core of my being. And for women, you know, we do tend to have, we do tend to have a lot of trauma, you know, at the level of the womb and the level of pussy. There's a lot of like imprinting there. So, you know, even for me, I don't know why I say even for me, but for me, there definitely was like to just make my way through the density of the womb and into pussy. Like I avoided it for a while. Like it was unfamiliar terrain, and I could feel the density of what I was being asked to navigate as I really started to drop into connecting to those wisdom centers. But it's so powerful when we do, because our essence finally fully occupies the fullness of our channel, right? And we really can anchor our energy and our essence in a very, very powerful way, which with, you know, feminine, new feminine leadership is really about anchoring the fullness of our medicine here on the planet. So we need to be able to bring it through our full channel. So for me, one of the very first touch points, and I, you know, part of my background is being a shamanic artist, and I use a process called the body mapping process. And it was, I had done a yoni mirror gazing journey. And you know, and I always really did enjoy my body, but still, even after like giving birth, like my body had changed and there was disconnect there. I really wasn't, there was numbness. Like I really wasn't like landed in the way that I could experience like pleasure. But I remember doing that journey and moving through layers of like shame and like, what am I doing? To like falling in love with like the essence and like the just the beauty of yoni. And so part of that process was like, you know, holding a mirror up and moving through some of those layers and then sketching it out and like really connecting with yoni like through that process. But as I did, all of a sudden it was like I could see like Mary Magdalene in there. Like I could just see like the goddess like in like her most basic shape. And like of course, but to draw it out, I was like, whoa, the medicine that was there was so profound for me. And it was very much like the, you know, the divine mother, the divine love, but also like that very powerful like, you know, dark feminine medicine of like the creator, the destroyer, the birther. So that was, you know, where I really started to be like, oh, there's something here. And then that was a pivotal point where I actually started to use that process. For me, it was daily. I did it for a full cycle. I started to like connect to the wisdom of Yoni, and I'd listen and I'd draw her out, and I'd just kind of see what's the energy that's present there. And sometimes I could see how disconnected I was and how much chaos there was around, or sometimes it came through with layers of pain, but it became just a mirror that I could journey with and really start to understand both the shame, the trauma, the disconnect, but also the power and the beauty and the pleasure.
Yeah, that art expression is so profound.
Right?
It kind of seems simplistic, but I think that's the power of it as well, is that in the simplicity,
totally,
the conversation that you're having with that piece of paper is actually giving
Mm-hmm.
you so much holding and space
Mm-hmm.
that is between
Mm-hmm.
you and the piece of paper. It's such an intimate exploration, isn't it? And I know
Such an intimate, yeah.
something that you do a lot,
Mm-hmm.
don't you, working with art, which I also do.
Yeah, the shamanic. You do. Yes, absolutely. The body mapping process was developed by Laura Hollick, so it's like a spiritual creative process. So there's like a couple other like layers or components, but art is so simple.
Yeah.
And I also find though, the reason I love it as a tool is because a lot of women shy away from it, like just pure creative expression. And
Yeah.
I love it because it can be messy and fun, and it allows us to get really comfortable being uncomfortable with our raw expression, which I know you would get. And so I'm like, just bring your crayons, bring your paints, and we're gonna do some creating. And it's amazing to see how slowly women start to open up to their expression, right? And
Mhm.
like, so the yoni was like another part of that. Like that's like, talk about like falling in love with like our unique beauty and expression. Like no two yonis are the same, which is
Yeah.
what makes them so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
just really that deeper expression of like grounding it as well. You feel like you're grounding
Mhm.
it through art. You're actually feeling that connection
Yes,
with your physical. That's what I found really
absolutely.
powerful about expression,
Absolutely.
whether that is just drawing or whether that's actually, moving and dance as well, as you're actually just really in communion and going deeper into
Hmm.
yourself. Um, so yeah, there are so many ways in which we can really learn to uncover and unfold from that density, because I really, really deeply agree and resonate with you when I was working in,
Hmm.
connecting with my pussy in my womb. There was so much to move through. And I
Hmm.
really think that's to actually highlight, because I do think that there are a lot of women who are like, oh, no, I don't want to go there. Like, no, I really
Hmm.
don't want to go there. And I fully see and hear anyone who is feeling that way, because it is
Hmm.
our connections and our stories and
Hmm.
everything that really thing I think as an invitation with this lighter introduction that you're offering, I think
Hmm.
just just open up to a communion or a conversation
Yeah.
with this part of your body. And actually, what I teach is placing your hands and actually speaking, allowing a
Hmm.
dialogue to come through within yourself and your pussy womb, to actually
I love
hear
that.
her, give her space to actually express, and to breathe, to really breathe
Hmm.
deeply into your space, into your pussy, kind of reclaiming it through the breath.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's it's a powerful journey, isn't it? It really is. It really, really is.
Hmm. I
And
think it's amazing. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, no, you.
Well, I think I was just going to kind of, off of what you were saying, I think it's amazing how simple, like a lot of the tools that I use are very simple, but the consistency with them, like the actual, like applying them and using them and taking them into a sacred practice and, and being consistent with it. It's, energy flows where our attention goes. So it's like, for me, I sometimes am like, so much of what I'm doing is so simple. It's just that I do it and I do it consistently and it can all grow and I can build a new tool in or a new practice. So yeah, I love what you're saying.
Yes, and actually, that what feels good to speak from that place is how to build that consistency, because that feels very much like bringing in that kind of masculine dynamics to meeting that, and how to
Mm.
actually, sometimes it can be really difficult to commit and to keep committing. And I think, a lot of people fall off at that like consistency, and then being
Mhm.
like, oh, well, that didn't really work, and then kind of on to the next thing.
Mhm.
So how would you, what would you offer as a kind of, yeah, as
Mhm.
a way to kind of help build that kind of muscle?
Yeah, well, I would say it kind of depends where you're at in terms of having a safer practice. So I have like I have a practice that it was a free gift on my website for years. It still is. It's called the Radiant Morning Power Hour. And so it's like that 1 hour or 40 minutes or half an hour that we carve as sacred space, like first thing in the morning. And that is like the devotional space, like for our own sexual awakening journey, a return to our power, that devotional place of, honoring who we're being called to become. And I found that practice too for me. And it's just, it can adapt. We can adapt it, but as long as we're carving space. So for me, first thing in the morning, and not every day of the week, but a good 3 days or 5 days is like really powerful. And then I would say if carving sacred space is new to you, that's sometimes that is the case of being like really busy, and the idea of actually sitting down, like what do you do? But I would say then it becomes like either lead time or the new moon or the full moon, like just getting like some kind of like rhythm of like connection in there. And there's always, like we talked about the spiral, there's always the invitation to go deeper with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And tuning into the cycles, which again is something
Yeah.
that you teach a lot within your work, isn't it? Linking in with
Yeah.
this cyclical
Yeah.
seasonal wheel and your own internal cycle. And so there really
Mm-hmm.
are these layers, and it's actually been coming up for me,
Totally.
which it does in the spiral again for me, saying
Totally.
go deeper with that, go deeper. There's always more. And that is
Mm-hmm.
how we actually connect with more, isn't it? By going deeper
Mm-hmm.
and actually, committing to the simplistic things, but over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something that I found to kind of heal through, stepping onto this feminine path, or kind of to commit over and over again, is that sort of niggling kind of wound of this linear way we should be living. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the deeper I go. That, like, really, are you sure you can do this? Or really, is this actually like, right? Or, all those little
Mm-hmm.
questions, because society is still, predominantly running like that. I've noticed that each time I go deeper, there's this like little, this wounding that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also feels important to speak to, because I feel like we're never really done. I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels like the deeper we go, there's always going to be stuff that comes up.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even working with the Akashic Records, which is considered one of the planet's deepest healing tools, I still look at it as like soul, like the soul, like it's the evolutionary woman's path. I don't think we're ever done, not in this lifetime. And I don't know if I'd want it to be. I
Yeah.
enjoy the journey of like, going deeper and uncovering that. And when we're done this, then like for me, I'm 45, it's like the crone initiation is coming. So I'm like, there's another kind of gateway, like for my feminine cycle, like, initiation. So I
Mm.
totally agree. There's always deeper to go. And you're right about, I agree with the linear piece. And I think we were talking about like the last 2 years, and I think that if I look back over the last 2 years, I knew there was like the next expression of my evolution coming.
Mm.
And there were times on that path too where I wanted to force it into place. Like, this is how it should look. Like, let's get this on the road here. Like, and then kind of like, no, like being halted almost and redirected, and being quite frustrated. And part of me kind of knew, go deeper. You've got to go deeper. And another part of me resisted it. And I danced around it even for a while, because and it is like that, even with women when they come, and I'm like, here's this Radiant Morning Power Hour, we want to start claiming space for you to drop in, and it may be very new to them. There's resistance. They dance around it. They haven't done it.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know on some level it's gonna create change, and change on certain levels is very uncomfortable. But it was like really that, like, finally being like, go the way you need to go, the way is like within, it's deeper, it's gonna open up and give you the next pieces. And I finally like committed to just like showing up for like the deeper pieces that I know I needed to, that I knew I needed to anchor into. Yeah. And then it really, but it's all perfect, right? When you look back, but yeah, it's, and I could see, you know, part of, I was just saying this morning, this body of work that I had brought out 2 years ago, which was so beautiful. And I fell in love with it. And I wanted to keep sharing it with the world and bringing it out, but it wasn't landing. And then now, as I can see some pieces coming together, there's like this missing piece that's like really kind of like pulling together this body of work that really wasn't landing. And I'm like, oh, there it is. Like, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the spiral and going deeper. Yeah.
And actually within that space, when you're kind of feeling that there's more, or how do you kind of tend to yourself in those times when it feels uncertain and kind of confusing? Do you have like a practice that you go to, or several self-care or self-love, like just to really kind of support when you're going through those times?
Totally. Yeah. And I think, you know, that if I look back along the last 10 years, it's always in those places where I'm given the medicine for the next, you know, stage of evolution. It's like, that's the root system work. Go there, right? Chaos. We don't know where we're going. It's full of uncertainty. It's the valley. It's very dark. We don't know who we're becoming, right? The old is gone. So it is always kind of like go within. So for me, it's like I go into a lot of deep like self-connection, embodiment practices. I'm dropping into spaces of love. I'm listening. I'm talking to my guide team. I'm really leaning deep into my connection with the divine too, you know, a sacred woman. It's like when I feel wobbly, it's like an invitation to really lean into the divine, like to know, to come into that place of faith and deep, unshakable faith, right? Because that's my job, but to also really lean into and build that trust that the divine has my back, and cultivating that sense of trust and receptivity in those spaces too.
Yeah, because we all have our different ways, don't we, to obviously, because
Yeah.
we're all unique, to really open up to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just such a powerful, powerful, powerful process. And I love hearing you sharing, you know, that that kind of commitment and devotion, and really leaning in, because I feel like that leaning into the divine, that feels really good. Because, you know, sometimes that sense of chaos and you're like, oh, where is it? You kind of know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where is it physically? Or, you know, like you get kind of in the chaos,
Exactly.
like, where is it? But the kind of leaning in and feeling the kind of pillar, I find that really powerful. Like the pillar in my body is the connection to the divine. Like it's the pillar, it's holding me, it's got me. Because for me, I'm a very kind of felt physical person. Kind of want to sort of really sense where it is in my body. And so that,
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's like the embodiment practices, like when we want to leave our body because it's so uncomfortable, but where can we actually like go deeper and be here and get into our bodies? Like I find that so powerful too, because it's often where like a layer of, you know, where a layer of trauma is coming up. So, and that's, you know, working with the Akashic Records, that's a lot of like what I'm untangling as I space hold for other women, or also for myself, like what feels so uncomfortable, like what is coming up at this edge and what do I need to clear out. And I also find it's these like this upgrade of like the, you know, this, we're going deeper into like the power of the feminine for me. And then I'm also going deeper in my relationship with God. So that like I'm untangling the trauma, most likely like lineage, past life, generational, connected to, you know, either my feminine or masculine lineage, but I'm also like really upgrading those other templates so to hold me and to anchor me as I really step into the next evolution. So, but yeah, the embodiment practices and the felt sense, that is true. That I love that.
Yeah. And actually, for those who are kind of not or haven't heard of the Akashic Records, could you kind of also offer the way that you teach, because you teach different things?
For sure. I feel like everyone's heard of the Akashic Records now, and that may not be the case. But when I started working with the Akashic Records a decade ago, it was like nobody knew what they were. I
Yeah.
constantly had to like, so, but yes, absolutely. There we hear about the Akashic Records more and more too, which I think is such a beautiful thing because they're here to assist with all this. It's to assist with all this karmic release, but
Mm.
you know, in its simplest forms. And I work with both like the Akasha, like the Akashic field, and the Akashic Records. So for me, the Akasha is like it's like the gentle vibration of like the Shakti, like it's just like this beautiful like field of creation and love and healing, and it's very visceral and shamanic for me. And that's, you know, one way I work with the Akashic Records themselves too, are just this ancient source of wisdom and love and healing, and kind of like a record. And so every soul has its own Akashic record, and that the Akashic Records, which is considered the planet's deepest healing tool, is contains all of this vibrational information on the history of our soul path, all choices that we have made not in alignment with our true divine expression and power, and then also like our true divine soul level blueprint. So that's like at its simplest form.
Yeah.
And they're held like the Akashic Records are held fifth dimensionally, kind of like this invisible like field of information, or like a library, kind of like the internet. But we also, the Akashic Records are held at this subconscious cellular like body level, which a lot of people don't think of it like that, but they are. And so I kind of weave in a very shamanic body based approach to working with the Akashic Records. That was
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
love that. It's in the subconscious. I'm like, yes, that makes so much sense when you say that, because that's really
Yeah,
what we're always trying to bring into conscious.
right.
We're always trying to like
Yeah.
understand what's back there, or what is, you know, we've got going on. So that's like bringing it into the light, isn't it? It's about
Yes.
alchemizing or
Yes.
forming. It's so powerful. It really is so powerful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it's
with
a
you use Flower of Life, that's your certification, isn't it?
yeah, the Flower of Life Akashic Healing Method was I guess that it was something very specific. I guess I kind of mentally created it, but it came through me. So I'm like, how do I say that? But it was after a good 6,000 Akashic Record sessions. I'd been working for a good 8 or 9 years with the Akashic Records, facilitating deep transformation. And when I first learned to read the Akashic Records, it was a very mental, like you would like intuitively download the information and I would give it as a reading and I would clear it and then people would go on their way. And I just kept feeling like there was so much deeper, like there's so much deeper to go. Like, how do I go deeper? And so just over time started to facilitate a little bit of a different method in terms of how I held and then guided transformation, whether it was through an hour or through, you know, like major life transformation. And, you know, in a way too, where we're always, you know, holding space for like authentic leadership. And then how did that apply to the level of the body, which it totally does. It totally does. When, especially when, you know, when we, you know, way back when I started with the Akashic Records, we didn't hear as much about trauma, like at all. Right. And now it's like everywhere. And a lot of it is work I've been doing for a very long time. Like when we talk about like codependent patterns and so
Mm.
much of, you know, our childhood trauma can actually be connected back to past life experiences. And I mean, it's so interconnected in the web. It's really quite fascinating. Yeah.
Mm. And I love how you're always looking to go deeper, because I always laugh because
Yeah.
I'm always saying I want to go deeper or deeper, and I'm
Right.
using this deeper like word before everything, and it's just like
I know.
good to have
Yeah. But
that.
I like,
Like it's
yeah.
good. It's good. Deeper
Yeah.
is
It's so
good.
good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
it's just I think it also helps to understand deeper because of from an evolutionary perspective. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're always going deeper, and if we can like really kind of welcome deeper as a curiously, what is deeper? What does this mean? It's something I've spoken to quite a lot in my journey, because I've always felt, that call to go deeper. Really, what does that mean? And I understand it now, further along my path of, it's the spiral, it's the deepening, and then it's the coming up, and then it's spiraling back down. So yeah, that the deeper wisdom is helping the lighter soul
I
expression.
think so. Yeah, I think we need that. And I think that, I come from a background as a professional makeup artist. And so, space holding for a long time for women to access their, natural feminine power, their authentic beauty. But still, even after a decade, I was like, how do I go deeper? I'm at the, I'm holding space, but it's like, it's very still on the physical. And like, how do I draw like more out? I know there's more. What's the soul? What's the spirit? How does that play into beauty? And that's where I found the Akashic Records, and it was what allowed me to go deeper. But speaking to that, I think that's an important piece in terms of like the evolutionary woman's path and authentic leadership, is that we have to understand how to travel deeper into the essence of who we are. Like our inner worlds are so rich and the root system is so deep, and it grows deeper. And then we come out even taller and fuller and bigger and more anchored in like that, the essence of our expression. So it is like a cyclical in and out journey. And I think for me, that's, and sounds like for you too, it's such an important like piece of the journey. Like I'm always cultivating the inner foundation to carry myself forward.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that
Yeah.
foundations as well. These kind of words that are not quite as comfortable as, up leveling and next level. They're kind of like
Totally.
deeper roots, like grounding, earthing, and the kind of call to that. And if those of you who are watching this and feeling like, oh yeah, I'm feeling a call to go deeper, or there's that word or that sense of like understanding your foundations or feeling more rooted in your foundations, because for me that has been so essential to actually rise and to be able to hold more. That's also something that is a big piece of the journey, isn't it? To be able to hold more as we're growing. How do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, that is tied into, embodiment and accessing our feminine power. And I mean, all of it, but even the womb and the inner root system work. And instead of, again, coming back to that more linear, like perspective, and this often happens with clients too. They're in a container and they're like, okay, what's the goal? Like, what are the steps? What do we need to do to get there? I'm like, no, we're not there yet. We're going to work on your state of being. we're going to work on the foundation. We're going to build the capacity through the new ways of being, and, anchoring more fully into our channel and our womb. And it's so true. And then we're able to like hold more and do less. And it's like such a powerful muscle that we get like access and strengthen. And I think it's like so genius when we can approach our businesses and our lives, and even like motherhood from that place.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Hold more, do less.
Yeah.
That feels really good. As a way to kind of describe the feminine path, isn't it? You are actually holding more and
Yeah.
not needing to just do for the sake of doing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I find that, through the evolutionary woman's path, we go deeper into our embodiment. We're building more capacity. We're grounding more of the fullness of who we are. And we just become so much more anchored. And I also find like I can just hold more in my business. Like you can hold more without it driving me nuts. Like things just start to anchor in my field because I'm anchored, and they kind of reorganize around me because I'm anchored. And that's the power of the womb. Like even for mothers, like oftentimes working with mothers who maybe have 3 children and a business, and it's just, they're just like, Like, let's get you anchored. Let's drop you into your womb-led leadership so that you are in your radiant womb leadership, and the family and life starts to anchor around you. Yeah.
Yes. And doing that internal work is everything is going to reflect your internal world, isn't it?
Totally. Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Woo! Like, yes, Tara has given some great
This was great.
and just fullness. I can see, I can see it, which I love as well. Like that, the visuals really always help me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Understand things more. So that kind of fullness of the womb is the fullness of your life as well, isn't it? That your creative center, the kind of fullness of that is going to, really support the fullness and the overflow of your life.
This was great. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And thank you. Yeah, that was just a great conversation. A lot of weaving. Yeah.
No, we're good at weaving. We knew it was going to be a weaving conversation because we did. Yeah. And there's so much more we could talk about, of course, but thank you so much for everything you've shared and offered, because it was
my
very
pleasure
and very abundant. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will put all your information below this conversation. So so Tara or look at her work, then all the links are below the conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, those who stopped by and took in our conversation. Sending you lots of love too.
Yes, lots of love to everyone. Thank you for being here for the Pussy Woman fullness.
Great. Yes. Fun. And you're just getting started.
No. And it does make sense to anchor the foundations. Thank you. Sending you lots of love. See you soon, everyone.
Bye for now.